Raheem, we are still in New York, only about 7 hours removed from a scintillating 7th-round knockout by Jaron Ennis over Xander Zayas, Jaron Ennis, who did unleash the John Blaze shit. His shit was John Blaze last night, Raheem, in Brooklyn. So, man, this was worth the trip, for one, and I could easily say, once again, that Jaron Ennis is one of my favorite fighters to watch and to cover in the sport. Last night, in my quick reaction to it, and people might have thought I was low energy, but it was 3 in the morning, and these fights end pretty late out here and all that. But I said, along with David Benavidez, Bam Rodriguez, and Naoya Inoue, that's the Mount Rushmore, along with Jaron Ennis, of the rare fighter, especially in today's game, that could satiate both the top 5 or top 10 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world list, and also satiate being one of the top 5 most exciting fighters in the world simultaneously on both lists. There's other fighters like Shakur Stevenson and Dimitri Bivol who are just as tough a out as them, and in the eyes of some of their supporters, maybe even a tougher out than some of those guys, but certainly just as tough. But those 4 right now are the 4 guys that are on both lists, who can both deliver excitement every time out and then be one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. So that was incredible. Real quick before Raheem gets to cooking, and I won't indulge in this too long because you guys come to hear about the fights, I got to apologize to the audience and Raheem for not doing the show not doing the show at all this weekend while we were both in Brooklyn. A part of that was enjoying being home a little bit too much, having my family out here for the first time when I'm talking about my son, and who did pick the fight right, by the way. Once again, Leonardo remains undefeated. But taking them through New York City and Brooklyn. But another part of it was that we get this comes with the territory. You get so much heat in the comments from trolls and people critiquing us that I got a little gun shy. And the truth is, I got to apologize to Raheem because we were on the phone for 2 days before this fight, and I had Ennis by decision in the 3 months leading up to this. Raheem, he had fun with it after my monologue about Xander Zayas. He picked Xander Zayas, but God is my witness, Raheem had boots in a big way from Thursday on once we got to the press conference. And I began to pick him by knockout as well, upgrading my pick from decision to knockout. But between so many people down my throat about this fight, it made me gun shy. It made me feel like, am I getting bullied into this pick? And once I started second guessing myself, I kind of didn't trust my word. Me and Raheem did a stand-up outside of Barclays Center after the presser where you could tell Raheem is leaning towards going the Ennis direction. But I didn't post that. I didn't post the video of me and Brendan, True School, walking around where Brendan said this is about to be Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, and how true that wound up being, all the way down to the knee in almost the same round. So I got to apologize to everyone for that. I got to be mentally stronger. But Raheem, you did have Ennis winning this fight in a big way, and I fucked you. I didn't let you get it up in time because I was too in my head. So I won't be doing that again. Lesson learned for this weekend.
Yeah, Sean, I appreciate your words. Obviously, we've discussed this off camera, which will remain private. It is always, though, so thrilling to be in a fight with the media that I have worked with for so many years, and it's not as often a chance I get to do that as it used to be. Mainly because I don't even live on this fucking continent anymore. And so a lot of these guys who are doing U.S. media don't travel to the U.K. And a lot of guys that I came up with doing U.S. media ain't even in the game anymore, for real. You know, Sean, you're one of the OGs, and you're definitely one of my day ones. So being in the same city, doing the same fight, and it not even being Vegas is special, you know? And I like to take the audience with us for this ride. So yes, when you had your monologue, I got inspired. I listened to the rundown. I started thinking about this big picture. I started thinking about what the moment could be. And in fact, I felt that way right up until fight week. All I needed was for Xander to give me some support. I needed to see something from the young man that says he felt like I felt. And sadly, and I was sad about it because I really wanted to bang on about this theory of mine and this moment and all this stuff, that during fight week, and I'm glad you're able to testify to it because we have had this discussion, I didn't see the guy that I needed to see to believe that he could do what I knew he had to do if he was going to win. Xander Zayas, you have to give him credit for fighting the fight that he fought, and we'll get into the fight that he fought, but just as the setup, he didn't have the belief. I honestly don't think he went into this fight with the belief that he really is in the line of Cotto and Trinidad, and that he went in there with the belief that he would not be denied, that no matter what happened in that ring, he was coming out with his hand raised and that flag waving behind him. He didn't go in there to dictate terms. He went in there to negotiate terms. And that was evident to me from the press conference. I was like, uh-oh. You know, and I know we're post-fight, so I don't want to drag us back into but I'm just giving you how I got from what you last heard. And by the time I was talking to Sean on Friday, I'm like, he's fucking, Xander's about to get washed. Like, what I expected happened as I expected, with the caveat that I thought it wasn't going to get past 6. He went one round longer than I thought, and to be fair, this thing really could have been done in 5 or 6.
5, yeah.
You know? And credit to Xander for taking it one more round, taking it 4 more minutes. But really, that went exactly like I felt it was going to go by Friday. And that's because of the fucking attitude, the mental perspective I could see on Xander going into the fight. And all right, so that's just the setup. You talk about the fight as it was fought, and then I'll talk about how that really represents what I saw pre-fight.
Yeah, you guys let us know in the comments if you want me to release the unreleased footage from Thursday and Friday, so you could clarify, because what Raheem was saying was everything he's saying and doing psychologically heading into this fight is to be reactive to Jaron Ennis, who clearly is saying, I'm just going to impose what it is I do, whether it's my counterpunching, whether it's taking the lead, whether everything I'm bringing to the table is what you're going to have to answer for. And Zayas was acquiescing and in agreement to that. I make the adjustments. That's what I do best. But Raheem was saying he's not ready to impose anything on Jaron Ennis. He's simply just going to try and be reactive to anything Ennis brings to the table, and that's not going to get it done Saturday night. Now, on to Saturday night. One thing I want to push back on a little bit is saying Zayas had the wrong game plan and he didn't box like he was supposed to. I thought that was the game plan he was going to do. I think that does hold some merit given Zayas's inexperience to a degree, but I could see down the line with him maturing as a fighter, he would have been able to implement a better game plan. But my pushback against that was he was getting out jabbed in the first 10 seconds of the fight. And that was a bad sign for him right out the gates. Was he eats the first jab, really the first 4 or 5 out of the first 5 or 6 jabs Ennis throws is bopping his head around. And that's a fighter taking control of the long range in the center of the ring. And so I don't know if he came in with that game plan and it was simply taken away and disarmed from him immediately. And what Ennis did in bringing to this fight such bad intentions like he always does is he made this kid fight for his life. He turned it into a sink or swim kind of environment and fight and drowned him. And I don't think he gave Zayas the kind of opportunity it kind of seems like from the outside looking in to box his fight. I think right away when the other guy's faster and just as long and he's out jabbing you from the moment go, he's taking away the outside range from you. And again, when he's forcing you to fight for your life is the best way I could put it. He's saying, you're not just in a boxing match tonight, you're in a fight. And if you try to fight a couple levels above just surviving early, you don't have a choice, kid. You don't have a choice. You're gonna have to counterpunch. You're gonna have to exchange with me, or I'm just going to run right through you. I'm just going to walk through you like a paper bag. And to Zayas's credit, he started counterpunch. Even getting dropped in the first round, I was noticing before the knockdown, this kid's reactions are good. He's countering. These were some really exquisite exchanges. I loved the exchanges in this fight. And after he gets dropped in the first, he's able to settle down and stabilize in the second. Ennis wins that round. And then in the third and the fourth, we get some of the best exchanges I've seen in a while. Vicious exchanges, to the body, up top, guys punching in between each other's punches. And Ennis was the better man punch for punch. We'll get to the third round that everybody's talking about. But Ennis turned it into a war of attrition. For a moment, Zayas answered the call, and we got some of the best action you're going to see all year. But ultimately, too much firepower, speed for speed, power for power, counter for counter. Ennis was the better man. And my only pushback was he made it that kind of fight. And there was nothing on this night that Xander Zayas could have done about it.
I want to remind you that when I broke down how Xander would win this fight when I was picking Xander, I said that he's got to go right at Ennis, make him uncomfortable, and like I say, impose his will, be the bigger man, go at him, and everybody was like, absolutely not. What an idiot you are. It's gotta be, if Xander's gonna win, even people who are picking Xander to win, which are far and few between, was like, it's gonna be a 12-round decision. He's gotta outbox him. He doesn't have the punch. Blah, 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 blah. What a fucking idiot you are, Radio. How can you be talking about going straight at Boots? Let me tell you something. This first 3 rounds, really 4 rounds, was great, including the first 2 for Xander. That's what, I don't think he had the wrong game plan at all. I think that's exactly what he should have done. Yes, including with being knocked down, but staying, because if you get through those first 2 rounds that way, being that aggressive, punch for punch, and what we saw immediately, the 2 things that were immediately obvious in the first 30 seconds, and I mean, I'm saying 15 seconds before the bell rang and 15 seconds after the bell rang. Those 30 seconds was how much bigger physically Xander Zayas was to Boots Ennis. I wasn't sitting in press row. I did like the Pacquiao Marquez kind of night. I went up and got myself a seat looking down into the ring with the proper vantage point because they don't respect us in the media giving us shit seats. So I went, I was like, I got to see this thing properly. Because, now I'm used to watching shit on TV also. I'm not happy with like a blocked view from below the ring. I want to see. And that's exactly what I did. So I was in the corner where Xander had his back to me, and I'm looking across at the corner of Ennis. I'm just like, the size difference is crazy. All I see from Xander is back. It's massive. And so that was the first thing that was super obvious. The size difference was I didn't even see as that big in the weigh-in, but in the ring I could see it clearly. And then in the first 15 seconds after the bell rang, the speed differential was nuts. It was like, okay, well, there you go, why this is not a fight for him and Xander to be trying to outbox Boots. If he tried to outbox him, if he had done what everybody told me he could, the only thing he should be trying to do, inside of 4 rounds. Inside of 4 rounds, this fight's over. You understand? The difference between what I would have hoped for Xander's sake, and if all this Puerto Rican shit I was talking, and if he had come in with the mindset and everything, you gotta make it that kind of fight so that Boots respects that in the first 2 rounds and maybe pop him with a couple of shots, make him respect your own punch, let him know you're going to be there, call him flat-footed. I think that was part of the strategy, hoping that maybe Boots would either try to prove he's not flat-footed and move a little bit and allow Xander to be more the aggressor and impose himself a little bit more, Boots trying to box, because to Boots' credit, he did stay in the pocket. He did fight a little bit flat-footed intentionally because he wasn't going nowhere. He was moving his head and slipping, but staying in the pocket, and he was on his feet, planted right there, and getting the better of the exchanges because he had superior speed. So, by the evidence of that being the case, by the time we get to the 3rd round, that's why Xander had the success he had in the 3rd round, because of the fight he fought in the first 2. And the thing is, if he at that point, after the 3rd, and was having some success in the 4th, That's when you need to start using that size and position. That's when you got to start making it ugly. And it's easier to say than it is to do. I'm aware of that. But if you start then, once you land some shots that are clean, and Boots wouldn't really come clean on whether or not he was hurt. I think he was definitely hurt in the third round. He wasn't coming clean on just how much a challenge Xander was putting to him in the third and fourth. He was kind of blowing it off, but Xander was there and making it a challenging fight. That's when you start, when you're inside, grab him, put the weight on him, tie him up, make it up. He was still trying to be pretty. He was still trying to exchange. He was still, that to me, when we said, oh, he's too, even though he's a two-belt champion. He's too young, even though he's 23 and Boots is only, 29 now. That youth, that bit of inexperience, that bit of like, I want to perform and I want to exchange and I feel like I can go punch for punch. That bit of like not knowing when it's time to make it ugly, when it's time to grab the guy, push him back onto the ropes, make the ref break you up, then go back to exchanging and then tie him up. And when he got hurt, tie him up, weigh on him again. That could have been the difference. I really believe if Xander had done that and been successful at doing that the fight would have gone longer and might have ultimately shifted his way later rounds. He couldn't get that off. He didn't try to get that off. And for me, for all that we saw in the excellence of Boots Ennis, I were to pick one thing that was the difference, it was the lack of experience and veteran knowledge and bring generalship from the champion, not knowing that was the time to make that adjustment. You want to talk about adjustments and how you're that was the adjustment to make at that time.
Yeah, because once the fight turned attritional, as they say in the UK, in the rounds 3 and 4, that's where it's like, Zayas, you got to keep your wits about you and not just go get caught up in this complete gunfight, which, as I said, I think Ennis forced him into at some point, whether he wanted to or not. He had to fight for his life. But you're right, that inexperience showed, and if he could have started to lean on him more, because it looked like in round 3 and 4, I'm like, is this war of attrition wearing out Ennis with this kid's size advantage and everything? But they kept exchanging, and Ennis was too much in those exchanges. It lit the kid up too much and took the momentum back and never looked back, and then stopped him a few rounds later. And when you're mentioning, you were so right about that in retrospect about Zayas would have just been better off knowing he's going to have to fight him from the outset instead of getting dragged into one on Boots' terms and then having to be reactive like you were noticing on Thursday and Friday. I remember Mikey Garcia, Errol Spence, and I picked Spence, but I'm like, well, maybe Mikey, who's really smart, outbox. He says, stop right there. You are not going to outbox the athletic, long black fighter if you are not the athletic. You know what I mean? If you're not the athletic guy, that's not the game plan that'll ever win against. And so when I was talking about Mikey outboxing Spence, he told me that, and this fight kind of reminded me that heading into, which is like, well, wait a minute. How is Zayas, no matter how, even if he has better fundamentals, that's the thinking, better fundamentals, good footwork, he's not the faster, more athletic guy. So that's always going to be an uphill climb. So there's that. Go ahead, Raheem.
When you talk about the fundamentals, it's because when you are dealing with a fighter who is relying on the fundamentals, you need to have all the fundamentals fundamentally. That's fundamentally part of being a fundamental fighter. You need to know that you can tie up, that you can rest while you weigh on, you can take breaks while you're being outsped. When the fight comes down to the other fighter just simply being faster than you, and I don't think, and I get, he got stopped in the 7th, he got dropped 3 times, I know what it is, but I don't think that was down to Ennis's punch power. I don't think it wasn't like Zayas was slept or he was just busted up and he couldn't take the power. No, he was just, it was a compilation of punches. It was speed that was overwhelming him. He was getting hit with shots that he couldn't see coming, and then doubling up. It wasn't like he was overwhelmed by power. So what does that mean? That means if you do the fundamental side of tying this guy up, weighing on him, and recognizing that you know that the speed was the issue, because they were punching for punch. Like, they would throw punches at the same time, and Boots' punch would just get there first, and if you're getting hit while you're in the middle of the punch, that is a more devastating shot. You're open and vulnerable and stretched, and I don't want to get into the anatomy of it, but check. That makes the punch more effective when that's why people punch between punches, as you saw with the Ben Whitaker fight. You know, the guy was telegraphing a hook, Ben Whitaker stabbed him straight to the jaw and put him down, because that's the easiest way to put a guy down. And each Xander knockdown was while he was in the middle of punching. That was part of the knockdown. And so if you accept that on the Xander side, and you know all the fundamentals, every trick of the trade, that is how you can contrast a slick, long, more talented, faster black fighter, and you hit him. And I actually think Xander had probably more power. I think Xander had more power if he could have sustained his power. Maybe there is something to the weight. Like, those shots he was hitting him with in the third, Boots won't cop to being hurt, but I was ringside, man, and he was hurt. He was hurt by those shots. He didn't get hit with enough shots to hurt him to where he was going to be, on his knee. But if you kept getting hit like that, if you could make Ennis tired on his legs and frustrated upstairs, not being able to get off at will and not being able to exchange, and then hit him with those shots intermittently, you're not going to land them all, because boy, Boots was slick with it and turning with some things. But he was getting hit. When he got hit flush, he got hit flush. That would have been the difference. You can't be the guy who's coming in with the fundamentals and only have 5 out of 7 fundamentals in your fucking arsenal. You need all 7.
Yeah.
And you need to know exactly what you're doing in there. And we're talking, there's a lot of conversation about the bully. Xander had an opportunity to at least attempt to be the bully. At the 3rd and 4th round was his opportunity to shift it. And as you said, he didn't try. And then Boots got right back on the momentum, and it was done and dusted.
I do think he did try. He got hurt in the last 20 seconds of his big 3rd round by a left hand by Ennis, and that's actually started to stem the tide even in the last. And then the 4th round, it continued to be back and forth. It was around Ennis still won on all 3 scorecards. But no, great breakdown on everything he could have and should have done, maybe with some more seasoning, but on this night, not so. And yeah, that was the theme of the night. Like, especially that right uppercut was really in between shots that probably should have called. They probably could have called it a night in one of the barrages to close the 5th round. But speed kills was the theme of the night, whether it was Emiliano Vargas and Bryce Mills, whether it was Ben Whitaker and Popeye Rivera. Speed kills, and you could get into the sweet science of counterpunching, and you have to have educated speed, and you have to know how to punch in between punches to get the most out of your speed. But sometimes it is a little as simple as speed kills. It's one of the best attributes a fighter could have over another fighter, and it was too much for Zayas in this fight. And Ennis is one of the fastest fighters pound for pound in the sport, one of the most gifted and athletic fighters, and that's why he was such a heavy favorite, and he showed why in this fight. When you mention he got caught clean, when he gets caught, he always gets caught clean, because he is a risk taker. He is a daredevil. He does believe in his chin. He believes in his power, and he believes in his vision and ability in the exchanges, and that is what makes him one of the most exciting fighters in boxing today. That to me, we were talking before about the American throne being open right now and kind of vacant. Crawford's retired, and you got Haney and Tank when he was fighting, and Stevenson, obviously, and Keyshawn's on the rise. I think Abdullah Mason, by the way, is on his way to being the next kind of Jaron Ennis when you talk about absolutely exciting, a little vulnerable because how exciting he is, but so much overriding talent of electricity in his hands with speed and power that he's going to be one of those guys on the most exciting pound-for-pound list and the actual elite fighters of the world pound-for-pound list. But he's a baby still getting, and he fights next week against Albert Bell. We'll be talking about that soon. But I say all that to say, I think Ennis, for me, I can only speak for myself, is the guy. When it comes to, in the United States, who's the number one guy that I would get most excited. I mean, I'm here. in Brooklyn. I didn't, respectfully to Shakur, who is top 5 pound for pound. I didn't come out here for Shakur and Teofimo. And Teofimo's an exciting talent too, but I came out here for Brook, and this was technically not as big a fight, given that both fighters aren't as decorated as Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. But I showed up out here because I had a pretty good feeling we would get something really worth coming out for. And I think Benavidez did it last month. Boots Ennis did it this month. If you think Shakur Stevenson overall pound for pound is a tougher out than Jaron Ennis because he doesn't get hit as much as Jaron Ennis, I understand and respect that. But for me, Jaron Ennis is that guy. And I think his it's almost like the discussions, the online wars between the lightweights and the welterweights. It almost starts to feel like teeny bopper shit, fanboy wars between, there's more time spent with their fan bases fighting online than they spend fighting in the ring. And then if they do get in the ring, you don't know if you're going to get the kind of action you got tonight. 3 knockdowns, both fighters being hurt in 7-round shootout. And Jaron Ennis fans, to me, he's becoming a real, East Coast boxing star who can obviously just keep growing across the country. I think Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith, these are already big-time mainstream voices that are behind Jaron Ennis and love watching him fight. And I think Ennis fans, it's about the boxing. It's about the boxing. It's not like he's some great personality outside the ring, respectfully. You could put him on with the Breakfast Club. You could put him in a media scrum. You could put it on Boots. He's not really going to say much. He does his best talking with these, and his personality, it comes out through the boxing game. When he got down on his knees during the face-off and was going like this and looking at the camera, that's where his charisma shines, is once the lights are on to fight, and he brings the fight. So, yeah, man, for me, he brought the John Blaze shit. He is the dopest American fighter in the game, and along with Benavidez. And along with Bam too. So, but we could get into the 3rd round and some of the chinks in the armor. But I think, and I'll just say this, I think he actually benefited in 2 ways from getting hurt in the 3rd round. If he had just blown this kid out in the first 2 rounds or in the 1st round, then it looked like he ran through chopped liver, like this kid wasn't nothing. And by Zayas making it a fight, giving him a scare, he provided enough resistance that you actually got to give him credit for beating a quality 23-year-old champion. So it actually helped him in that regard. And then the other way it helped him is now Vergil Ortiz and Funodra think they could whoop his ass. And if he had just blown him out in 2 rounds, then he showed enough vulnerability that the other guys will jump at the opportunity to fight him, as they should. If you're Vergil Ortiz or Funodra, you think you knock him out if you're landing those same shots. Maybe you do. So you'll actually probably get the fight sooner rather than later. Not have to wait an excruciatingly long time. So, and it makes it fun to watch.
Let me dissuade everybody from the narrative that I was being told and hearing just now about Boots Ennis being so exciting because he's in the pocket and he's willing to exchange and he's doing that on purpose and that's just part of him wanting to get the finish. Well, I asked him that at the post-fight press conference and we got laughed out of the room. Well, who said that? You know, because he thinks he's clever and he's like, well, who said that? You must have come up with that. Well, truth is, I said that was bullshit, and people were I was saying Boots gets hit too much, and that's part of what could win this fight for Xander. And every time I said that to somebody, they're like, nah, he just gets hits like that because he's down for the exchange. He wants to stay in the pocket and hit you 3 times to his 1. He's willing to take the shot and all that. Well, apparently not, because he thought that was laughable. And then I said, okay, so then that's what I thought. So credit to Xander for every shot he did land. Full credit to Xander for making those, for hitting you with those shots. And he was like, well, I was just,
I got lazy.
And then, and so in that moment, like,
can't have it both ways.
Oh, you're not gonna own up to it. You're not gonna, because he thought, you know what I mean? He thought saying that what I was saying was somehow diminishing to him, but that's how people compliment him and excuse him being hit that much. And that is maybe why these other fighters will jump on and be like, oh, well, if I can land those shots, well, I can knock him out. I can do this, I can do that. I don't know that is true. I don't know that they can. The thing about what I don't like about how fighters now respond to other fighters' performances, if they got beef with them, you can't get the credit you deserve. And nobody's out there fighting. Like, if you want a flawless fight where you don't get hit at all, again, that's the Floyd Mayweather effect. And then we're going to get some Shakur Stevenson-esque performances from a couple of years ago where everybody is like, why the fuck are we here? You know, so if so what do you want? Like, you want Boots to go in there and not get touched? Now maybe he could have done that if he had decided that he would back up and fight at distance and turn this into an 11 or 12 round fight instead of 7. And then we'd say he stunk the joint up. He packed Barclay and didn't come to fight. And he was running all night. And if Xander still ended up losing, he'd be like, you know, I couldn't catch him. He was just running all night. It was Tom and Jerry and all this shit. So you can't win now with your contemporaries. I would like to see fighters give credit where credit is due. I would like to see fighters not look just to jump on and talk shit no matter what. Win, lose, or draw, everybody's talking shit. Like, and what you forget, in what Boots forgot in the moment when I asked that question, if you diminish your opponent, if you say that this guy ain't nothing, or he's an easy knockout, or, you know, he didn't win or earn anything in the fight, well then, when you beat him, it ain't nothing either. The reason the fight was tough, the reason, like Sean just said, that you are looked now as a even better fighter than when you went in, is because Xander did bring something to the fight. Because he did keep getting up, because he did have the third and half of the fourth, and did put a challenge on you that you had to be resilient through, turn the momentum back in your favor, and never let your foot off the gas. Watching you do that is the compliment to you. That's not the knock on you. That's not the thing you need to run from. Go ahead.
I would want, by the way, for the record, I would prefer what Boots did. I think, like, when they're, because you're saying, well, what do you want? Do you want the 12-round shutout without getting hit? Or do you want a guy to take some shots, maybe even go down, get hurt, and then provide 3 knockdowns and all the theatrics you got? The latter, okay? Right. For the record, I prefer what Jaron Ennis just did. I do. That's just me, okay? That I enjoy that a lot more. However, there will be an occasion, maybe it is Vergil Ortiz and Funodra, that calls, in order to get the job done, to lean more towards what Floyd would do in some fights, not all, and what Shakur does in most fights, not all. And that is just dial up the defense the best you can. And Ennis is always going to be Ennis. I think he's an offensive-minded fighter. That's why he's so fun to watch. But he will, for those assignments, perhaps have to dial that up. And I more than understand when the occasion calls for it, and you don't, it's not a choice anymore between winning in spectacular fashion and taking some shots along the way, some scary moments, or just pitching a shutout. No, sometimes to dial it up, you have to either choose to tighten it up or win or lose against the guy that can not just give you the scary moments, but beat you if you make the fight too exciting. And so, I while I prefer what he did this weekend, my bad, I'm just making sure I don't stay in the sun too long and fuck my shit up.
Yeah, it was starting to sketch there.
Yeah, I think it was the heat. I'm here in the Brooklyn sun. How we looking? We good? Coming back to life? Yes.
Yeah, but it's still a little sketchy.
All
While
right.
you jump on that, let me see if I can do a little fill here.
Yeah.
It was down to Ennis to force him into that position. Like, if you want, like, for instance, by the
one more thing.
Round,
Because you mentioned other fighters looking at what he did and thinking they could have success, like Ortiz. Look, that was the case heading into this. Karan Jukajan, I mentioned it multiple times, took him 24 rounds with movement, boxing. So Xander Zayas, who's a better boxer than Karan Jukajan, who's a bigger guy than Karan Jukajan, who's a world champion unlike Karan Jukajan, he'll be able to do the same thing with more success until it was the night and he actually couldn't. So same thing potentially for Vergil Ortiz, who's licking his chops. Oh, if I land those same shots like Xander Zayas did, I'm going to take it a step further and knock him out. Just like Xander Zayas, if this guy Jukajan, who's not the fighter I am, is giving all these angles and frustrating him and making him reach, then I'll take it another step further, and until you get in there and it's not that, you know, just because.
Well, until you get in there and own the center of the ring, like Xander would have had to beat him out of the pocket, make Boots be like, okay, this ain't worth it. I can fight on the outside, because his jab with the speed and the length was tagging Xander. Like, if he had decided to go outside and just stick the jab, he'd have been snipering Xander all night in a performance that wouldn't have been nearly as exciting, but it would have probably been 100% as dominant, if not more so, just taking longer to get there. But here, and I know we're in fantasy land now. This is not what happened, and who knows if it could have happened. But in my
he's got to prove he could do that for 12 rounds.
I can't hear you. You're like,
and he's got to prove he could do that
he wouldn't
for
have had
12
to.
rounds.
What I'm saying is, you got to make him prove it. But if what we got in the first 2 rounds, including the knockdown, and then we get the 3rd round, which is the only round I really gave to Xander, but if Xander is able to capitalize on that 3rd round, start tying him up, start doing what I discussed earlier, and make that 4th round his own. If Xander can win the 3rd and the 4th that way, and start fighting Boots out of the pocket, and make Boots then get on his back foot and stick, then the momentum is also shifted in a weird way to where it looks like Xander has come on, he's too much for Boots, now he's chasing Boots, and down the line, you can either get a gas Boots, or you get that momentum shift where it feels like all of a sudden Xander's the aggressor. He's landing big shots here and there. He's getting out jabbed, but it's a close fight. And it feels and looks completely different, and who knows how it finishes. All that is a big fantasy, but I'm saying that's how I imagine the fight possibly going if everything had gone right for Xander. If it had all gone right, he still gets knocked down early. If it went picture perfect for Xander, there's no way those first 2 rounds aren't hell for him. And when it comes to Boots being, you know, the next big superstar and his personality and all that, I gotta tell you, man, it's not landing for me. Not yet. It really isn't. You know, I think the guy is a great talent and a good guy. I don't like the dismissive kind of like, you know, not engaging with questions and acting like, oh, you know, I was, what do you say? I was chilling and what and all this kind of thing. No, you weren't. And there's no credit in chilling. Like I don't understand how these young fighters, even in their late 20s, don't see that owning up to how difficult winning a fight is, how much you have to put in, how much effort you have to put forward to get a dominating win like that, to get 3 knockdowns on a 2-belt 23-year-old world champion who keeps getting up off the canvas. That is the medal. That is where the real accolades lie. Not being like, oh, everything's easy. When you know it's not. Oh, I never got hurt. He didn't touch me. I was chilling. When you did get hurt and you had to come back from that, it's the opposite of what you think it is. It's the opposite. And I would like to see, and part of it is because of what we talked about. Everybody's a critic. Yes, we have our criticisms right now, but this is what we do. Other fighters looking for any little crack to say, oh, you're a bum. Oh, I would knock you out. Any little thing that they can capitalize on. So what happens? Reflexively, these fighters become so self-conscious and so insecure, really, that they can't admit the truth about anything. And we can end up not being able to have a real conversation about what happened in the fight because they don't want to admit any flaws or any difficulty or that give the opponent any credit. So we end up with just any old bullshit response, no matter whatever the question is. It's that attitude. And for me, that doesn't make you a star. That doesn't really, you know what I mean? The reason Rocky is the most popular boxing movie ever is because you see a guy vulnerable and overcome adversity, not because nothing was hard. Let me touch on your Abdullah Mason. I feel like Abdullah Mason, man, might be the Muslim Sugar Ray Leonard in the way that he could become a star. He is the most affable, humble, smiley, but vicious in the ring. Yes, takes risks, sometimes unnecessarily, which I think time and experience will school him out of. I think that's the kind of guy, when I talk to him, he shows his vulnerability, he shows his family side, his sweet side, and who knows, the bigger the star gets and the more people are at him, we've seen it a million times, sometimes it changes who they are. But who Abdullah Mason is right now, his attitude, the way he talks to the press, the way he goes about his business and presents himself, to me, that's the perfect model. That's what I want to see from a young fighter who really could be like the next big ambassador, American fighter of the sport, and kind of golden boy, no pun intended, of the boxing game. Like Abdullah Mason is presenting in the way that I think superstars present at that stage in their career.
Yeah, defensive is the word to go along with the other adjectives you described, and to be fair, us just getting a little modicum of what these guys get with people talking mad shit about you, it will make you very defensive and in your own head. I know that for sure. I mean, I was so defensive this weekend, I just stopped making videos. I didn't even show up. At least Jaron Ennis shows up and does his job, unlike I did. And I think part of that, too, though, is his favorite fighter ever was Floyd. The Floyd influence still covers the sport. And you're talking about connecting with an audience, which is, for a lot of people, coded for building an audience and becoming a bigger draw. Theoretically, by letting people in, Floyd could use a Sigmund Freud type of psychoanalysis at how defensive he was and how much he would never admit fault. And it made him the biggest box office draw ever. So on some level, you may be saying, well, fuck what you're talking about. I'm going to follow that blueprint. But to back up Raheem on what he's saying, one guy that agreed with Raheem was Vince McMahon at the peak of the then WWF. Stone Cold Steve Austin, one reason he said he wore his leg brace beyond the years he really needed to was he explained, and Vince McMahon agreed with him, baby faces, the good guys, need to incur sympathy from the audience. That's why baby faces sell for the heel when they're getting kicked on and punched on, and then they build up the audience's sympathy until they have the big comeback before they win. And that's your point you were making about Rocky. So that's why The Rock sold so much, as they say, when he get hit on. That's why Stone Cold kept that leg brace on. He said, because even though I'm talking all this shit, I'm still only 6'1", always wrestling bigger guys. I'm bald, and when they see me getting hit on, they're like, come on, Stone Cold, get up there and beat his ass. And that was part of the psychology of how they got the fans to get in on their side. And so, that's to support Raheem's part of what he's saying. Speaking of critiques, not only did Vergil Ortiz have one, and that's an amazing fight because Ortiz he's not known for his velocity, but he does bring really good punching velocity, aka speed, and he's an incredible combination puncher. And he's not going to make the mistake of what you're saying of trying to outbox Vergil or Jaron Ennis. He's going to make it a firefight and go blow for blow. And oh my God, on paper, what a fight that should play out to be. And he has more firepower than Xander Zayas. And he's meaner and more ferocious than Xander Zayas, whose advantage over Ortiz is supposed to be his boxing acumen and a little bit more versatility to moving around the ring and all that. But Ortiz has an excellent jab, an excellent double jab, very fast hands that can challenge the hand speed in the exchanges of Jaron Ennis, and power that can challenge the punching power of Jaron Ennis in those vicious exchanges that are sure to break out. And before I get to the other guy who had a comment, I should have said this 25 minutes ago, but when you were correctly saying Zayas' best bet all along was to impose his size and his will and not just try to be reactive to whatever Ennis, who has better reactions and quicker than him, was trying to do, you are correct now, and I see what you meant by Bam versus Inoue. Because I said, no, Bam needs to download some data and take his time. No. Just like what Ennis was doing to Zayas, trying to perhaps do that from the outset, you'll get blown out the water. You'll get ran out the ring by the speed and the power. You'll be overwhelmed. You better show up to fight, because it's going to be a fight, and that's your only chance. So now I get exactly what you meant by Bam Rodriguez against Inoue. Anyways, that'll be another video for another day. Terence Crawford had something to say. And it's funny, I think I heard someone in the back say, come on, Sean, don't ask that. And it's like, I wouldn't have asked it if he didn't say anything. If Terence in the post-fight or on Twitter just said, hey, congrats to Boots, great fight, great job, then the question I still would have asked would have been, Terence gave you some props. What do you think of him giving you props? But he threw some shade, and this is between them. And Bozy and Jaron shut it down right away. He's retired. We're not here to talk about retired fighters. But Crawford couldn't help himself. He talked his shit. The problem for Ennis in that matchup was always, and I've done this comparison, like Terence is Kobe Bryant and Jaron Ennis is Vince Carter or Tracy McGrady. Same kind of build, can do all the same kind of things. But there's a little sophistication to the skill set of Kobe Bryant that separated him from his two peers that were just as talented, just as tall, could jump just as high, maybe a little higher than he could. And it was the sophistication to his skill set, right? I wanted to see Crawford boots more than just about any fight, probably any fight in boxing when Crawford was at welterweight and was still active in the sport, because I thought it was that John Blaze shit. I thought it was the James Toney, Mike McCallum kind of amazing shootout in the exchanges of speed and countering the counters and vicious intentions by both fighters. But Boots gets caught in a way that you would think Crawford would catch his ass and would at some point catch him nasty and win the fight by knockout in a shootout, in a classic. So I say all that to say Crawford had seemingly something to say after the fight. What do you think of that, Raheem? That Crawford couldn't help himself and had to throw some shade and will the fight still ever happen? Or if it would have happened, just
help myself either. In my post-fight interviews ringside, I ended every interview, whether it was with Meek Mill or Amanda Serrano or Gilly, every interview I ended with, if we see Terence Crawford against the Boots Ennis we saw in the ring tonight, who wins? The reason I did that with a retired fighter is because I know that this retired fighter can be goaded back, even with his character, into the fight if you hear a carousel of cascading choruses around people saying that Boots Ennis beats Terence Crawford. And the boxing fan, especially if I'm honest, the black boxing fan will be swayed more quickly to the new and shiny object than to the historic great. They will see Boots, they will be in the building, they will be on their feet, they will see the knockdowns, watch the knockout, be excited at the moment, and be like, I got Boots! Already forgetting what they've seen from Crawford. Already elevating Boots beyond what Crawford has done in the totality of his career. And I don't think Terence Crawford can suffer that very long. If people start saying this about Boots and consistently this soon after Crawford has retired, saying that he would get beat by this guy, we'll see Boots and Crawford in the ring within a couple of years. Like, that's how big the ego is. That's how much competition exists in Crawford. That's how much I don't think he could just allow that to rest. Like, you know what I mean? When the conversation was around Floyd and Crawford, Floyd just knew it was too long. It was too late. All he can do is talk. But he can't get in the ring. That's not where Crawford is right now. Crawford can still come back. Crawford could still do it. Crawford isn't past it to the point where now it just has to be a conversation, because it'll never happen. And if I make it a conversation consistently enough, soon enough, which it is right now, I'm betting on egos. How many fighters have actually walked away at the top of the game, undefeated, and made no comeback? Not lace them up ever again.
Andre.
Less than a handful.
Andre.
And if you get at these guys' ego, you start pushing those buttons, and he has these kind of nights in Boots Ennis, and off the back of that, Terence Crawford's like, oh, now all of a sudden he can beat me. I can hear him. Off the back of that, he can beat me? Yo, crazy. Like, I'll come back to this for the one. Like, so yes, I am shamelessly trying to needle and poke and prod and push Terence's buttons to see just how deep that ego runs concurrent to that character. To see once the money gets good, the conversation is being had at the barber shops, the people who used to say you beat everybody now saying Boots beats you. Let's see how long you can take that and stay retired. I want to test it. I want to put that shit to the test.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I was out in front of this thing years ago. By the time we even got to Crawford Spence, I was saying on Sean's show and everywhere else, this is the fight. Crawford and Ennis is the fight. And then he smoked Errol Spence. And then we started to move towards Crawford Canelo. And I go, no. Canelo Benavidez and Crawford versus Ennis are the fights. And so I'm saying it now. In 2026, the morning after the Zayas fight, Crawford and Ennis is the fight. And you're right, they will be talking about it in the barbershops and everywhere. And Shannon Sharp, I guarantee you, is going to talk about it with Ocho Cinco tonight. And I guarantee you Stephen A. Smith wants to see that fight. And I guarantee you anyone who's interested in boxing, basically, is thinking about that fight. And I mentioned earlier about the difference in the fan bases. Look, I gotta state, by far, every fighter that comes to this level, it has a group of psychophants that I find fucking deplorable and super fucking annoying, okay? So not just to single out the guys I singled out earlier. And the psychophants of Terence Crawford and of Jaron Ennis will go to war. But this is bigger than them and their petty bullshit. the much bigger voices and broader, casual voices will want to see this fight. And all respect to Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson, that is like the kiddie pool fight compared to this fight. This is the grown man. Someone's going to get knocked the fuck out. You are going to see some hot shit on both sides being thrown. Some heat on both sides being thrown. And it won't go 12. And you might see both guys go down. And even though I just said what I said about Terence Crawford, you know, probably at some point, if it's the prime version of Terence Crawford, although Jaron Ennis now is getting the seasoning. He's getting the experience. This is only going to make him better. Jaron Ennis has always been a threat to Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford knows that. He knows that. He's looking at another one across from him. Maybe in some ways, if they fight in a year or two, he's looking at a younger Terence Crawford. Who else can match his speed or maybe even exceed it? Probably does exceed it. Has to be able to exceed it at this stage. Now the timing and finding the right shot at the right time, that's still got to be advantage Bud Crawford. But raw speed, raw horsepower from the Ferrari, known as Jaron Ennis, it's got to be the younger man's advantage at this point. Power for power, he can punch like Terence Crawford. And he's a killer like Terence Crawford. He comes to hurt you like Terence Crawford comes to hurt you. Oh, this fight is the shit. I've been wanting this one. I'll take it now. Huh.
Listen, everybody within the sound of my voice, whenever you see Terence Crawford, whenever he posts something in the comments, whenever you have an opportunity to engage him, tell him how Boots beats him, even if you don't believe it. This is not what it's about. It's not about you speaking your mind. It's about us having an effective strategy to get this guy back in the ring and make this fight happen. Keep talking to Terence about Boots, and we will get the fight. It's up to you. We're going to do our part. I'm all here for the sycophantic pettiness. I will push every ego button possible because nobody stays retired. I don't believe any fighter who says they're retired for the first time. None of them. And very few, like 3 have proven me wrong. I can't even, is it even 3?
Andre Ward, Joe Calzaghe, and Rocky Marciano.
Andre Ward. Who's even my third?
Rocky Marciano.
Huh?
Rocky Marciano. You got to go back a little bit.
You don't count for me because I wasn't around. Like, I don't fucking Rocky. I'm saying people who proved it.
What do you mean he don't count?
You don't count because I didn't cover those fights.
I'll take a train to Bensonhurst. I'll take a train to Bensonhurst and tell him you said he doesn't count.
People who said it to me, people who, when I've been alive to cover boxing, have retired at that stage and stayed retired forever. I can only think of the 2. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but 2. And I don't think Terence is going to be number 3 if
and
we
Lennox.
do our jobs.
And Lennox. But he wasn't undefeated. But Lennox.
Okay,
but anyway.
There's the third.
Yeah.
You got it. I thought there were 3. I say 3 because I remember 3, and that's the third that I just forgot. Okay, fair play. There you go. We can do this. Last bit. I want to actually see, and it's going to be tough because of the promotions and all this, but I'd actually like to see Xander go over and fight, God damn it. Come on, Eddie's fighter. His name escaping me right now.
Amari Jones? No, that's the Golden Boy. That's the Oscars fighter.
No. Oh, come on. What's the matter with me? It's not Funodra. Who's got the other belt?
Oh, Josh Kelly.
Kelly.
I don't think this kid wants to make that weight anymore. I mean, he skipped out on his whole press obligations on Fight Week because he was killing himself to make weight so much.
He can make the weight. Even after the post-fight, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to 60. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
The Josh Kelly fight, I would, if it's possible. I know physically maybe you're saying is too big a hurdle. But
by the way, do you think AB was right to call him a quitter and Ortiz was right to call him a quitter? Yeah.
Nah, it's some bullshit, bro. That I thought was so low class, so weak. And it wasn't even, and I even know what he was looking at, because he saw him on the knee and him, giving up. But it was because, I couldn't hear it myself either, but I think the referee was telling him that the corner threw in the towel, and he just accepted that, okay. He said, I think the ref was telling him the fight's over because your corner's thrown in the towel. That's what the conversation was between the ref and Xander, not do you want to continue or should I stop the fight? No, he just accepted that the towel had been thrown in. But even if it hadn't, even if the conversation had been, are you done? Is that enough? And he said yes. I wouldn't have considered that quitting. I mean, the guy. Listen, I'm the guy who was so adamant about the Wardley fight, and when it's time to stop the fight, Xander wasn't getting up off that knee and winning that fight. He was getting up off that knee and getting battered, taking more unnecessary punishment, definitely unnecessary at that point. You can make an argument everything after the 5th round was unnecessary. So
possibly taking years off your career. Yeah, possibly taking years off your career.
And your mentality and the amount of time you have to heal for your next fight and giving this guy yet another highlight knockout. No. Whoever stops it, if it's the ref, if it's the fighter, if it's the corner, if it's the doctor, that was the time to stop that fight. So whoever has the wisdom to say enough, then kudos to you, even if it's the fighter himself. And so Broner, who took a knee on life, have the audacity to be like, I'll die in there, kill me, from a guy who's been spending the last 10 years trying to kill himself. Come on, man. And even if you feel that way, on the fight night, you want to kick that guy when he's down after he's not even out of the ring, just lost that fight, as if you're the model, as if, you know what I mean? There's one thing.
And Broner put his hands in his pocket for a fair number of fights, like Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, where, Xander, for as long as he was in there, let it rip, let it fly, and then just. He's not going to die in there. And, like Miguel Cotto against Margarito, he had enough and will live to fight another day.
Exactly.
He showed plenty, yeah.
I mean, come on, man. And he wasn't the only one who said it. Somebody else said that he quit as well.
Vergil.
Yeah, it's just that's poor form, dude. And like we said earlier, give guys their credit for effort put forward. If they weren't enough on the night, or if the other guy was too much and just better, just faster, more creative, more talented, was the man to win the fight because he was the best fighter on the night. And what do we say? May the best man win. Last night, Boots Ennis was the best man, and he won. Xander Zayas was a hell of a fighter and was gracious in defeat and fought every last second that he possibly had in his body, and he was finished. Fight was done. That's not quitting. That is putting on a championship level effort in losing to the better man. That's what the sport's about. Live on to fight another day. You would die in there, so you want him to die in there? That would be a better finish for you, Broner? That's a better finish for you, Ortiz, if they're taking him out on a stretcher and we hear about a brain bleed today and how we never see Xander Zayas in the ring again? To you, that's better? Because he didn't quit? The fuck
and credit.
Out of here.
Because we sometimes in our broad conversation we skim over little technical details. We'd be remiss without pointing out it was a lot of that body attack by Jaron Ennis that made him succumb to that knee and hurt him in the lead up to that stoppage. And Zayas was starting to cook with his left hook to the body, and Ennis said, "All right, let's go blow for blow. I'll punch you to the body as well as up top." And that it was some body work that made Zayas have to take that final knee in addition to the combination up top that did it. So just to let you guys know, we're not missing anything here. But
no.
Yeah.
And Boots Ennis barely missed anything. He landed just about every punch he threw. But boy, let me tell you, credit to both fighters. What a tremendous night of boxing.
It was a classic.
It was a classic. All classics ain't 50-50. Some of them are just great fucking scraps. And that's what we got out of Barclay, out of both guys. Stand up, Puerto Rico. Stand up, Philadelphia.